Hello and greetings, Jaguar Nation. Welcome back to school. Welcome to the 2018-2019 school year. Principal Anderson here. Hope you are excited for the beginning of this school year and are ready to have a great year here at Jefferson. This presentation is for students in grades 11 and 12. Is going to review a few of the key handbook policies and procedures that come up here that we want you to be aware of. As always, the full version of the student handbook is much lengthier and can be found online under the student resources page. We encourage you to go check that out when you have some time to see the full length of some of the rules and policies that we do have, because they do impact you here as a student. That can be found on the Jefferson website. Principal Anderson here again, as I mentioned, but I do work with a great team as far as administration. Mr. Hall is assistant principal. He works with students with A through L last names. Ms. Jarvis is assistant principal, and she works with students with last names M through Z. Mr. Musil is our dean of students and works with all students. And Mr. Nyberg works he's our activities director, works with activities, sports, arts, music, and all that good stuff. Another good group to know are the counselors. Many of you worked with your counselor in the past, but if you have not yet, please make sure you do so. Miss Miller, Miss Erickson, Miss Everett, and Miss Kretzmeyer divides the alphabet into 4s based on your last name. And Miss Wallerick works in the Career and College Center, and she works with all students as they prepare for the next phase in their career. Miss Riley and Miss Sheff are their 2 secretaries and are great resources. All of these ladies are an excellent resource for anything you might need around college preparation, academic planning, social emotional support, conflict resolution, mental health and anxiety. And if you're just not sure where to go, they are a great place to start. Another group of people that you should get to know are the behavior intervention team. These 3 work with positive behavior supports here at Jefferson, work with behavior intervention so we can all have a positive learning environment. Mr. Musil, Dean of Students, is in charge. Ms. Wetzel and Q work with him. All of them are amazingly collaborative, working with teachers and students to maintain that positive atmosphere that we expect here at Jefferson. So as this is geared towards older students, you know, a big phrase that you're going to hear throughout this presentation and you're going to hear throughout the year is just being leaders and role models. We look to you to show the younger students how we do things here, whether that's by voice, whether that's by action, whether that's just by leading by positive example. We really look to you to set an excellent and positive tone here. So please be role models and leaders here at Jefferson. So we're going to get started on some policies and procedures. The academic integrity is the first one we're going to cover. It has not changed in previous years, but it's something we want to remind people about around cheating and the impacts of academic integrity. You know, just really very strong reminders around plagiarism, receiving unauthorized materials, having devices out when you're not supposed to, having documents when you're not supposed to, taking pictures of tests and sharing them. All those things are pretty obvious no-nos and will get you into hot water. One that I want to cover real quick because it happens perhaps the most common is sharing of work with a friend or colleague. What ends up happening is a friend has a hard time getting started on a project or a paper or studying for a test, so they ask their friend who maybe took that class before or did a similar paper to share it with them either on Google or what have you, and they end up taking more of the work than they should have or copying more of the words than they should have, and it gets dinged. And so now both students get into hot water around academic integrity. If you share work with a friend, not only is the person who copied in trouble, but the person who shared is in trouble. So please be very smart about what you share with friends around work, formative or summative. If you've got any questions on that, ask the teacher if that is an acceptable thing to do. And if you are nervous to ask the teacher, then I think you already know the answer to that. Consequences for academic integrity or cheating definitely depend on the number of circumstances, number of violations, but they might include loss of credit for a course, a code of conduct violation with Minnesota State High School League, earning zeros on assignments, completing an ethics study, and more. And please note that violations are cumulative over your high school career. So if you had one in 1 year, you will start at the next level, year 2. Handbook, pages 29 to 32, has more details on that. Cell phones, electronic devices, social media. Many of you, most of you, bring a cell phone or something like that to school every day. We understand that as you get older. Reminder in school that the adults are in charge, the teachers are in charge of the classrooms and the learning environment. So if they ask you to keep it away, put it away. You know, that's the expectation, and we will enforce that in the office. Please be mindful about the ringing volume and all those sorts of things. So please turn it silent or keep it put away. It depends on what the teacher asks you to do. Look to your teacher for direction there. So some tips for all of this to highlight having a successful year. Students who bring personal electronic devices do so at their own risk. So you all have Chromebooks, but if you bring cell phones, iPads, your own computers, and they get broken, damaged, lost, stolen, what have you, the school is not liable for those devices. Please use social media wisely. Many of you use social media. I use Twitter quite frequently, but please be mindful of what you put on social media. Anything that causes a disruption to the learning environment is an issue. So even if someone posts something at night or on a weekend, but if it comes into the school and creates an issue at the school, it can become a school issue. So please be smart what you put on social media. And just other reminders that anything you post digitally exists forever. So anything you post online on a social media app or what have you exists forever. Many of you might have heard over the recent couple of years about celebrities and athletes, politicians with old tweets and old posts coming back to haunt them. They posted them when they were younger, when they thought something was funny or whatever, and it came back to haunt them because it was in poor taste or crude or what have you. So please be mindful that anything you post exists forever. In future schools, colleges, jobs, people will check your digital profile. They'll look you up online on social media, so please be smart on what they will find. And it definitely goes for things like Snapchat or Finsta or whatever, the next version of something that people think is secret or disappears. Those things come back to haunt people more often than you probably imagine. So please be very, very smart. We want all of you to not have any issues with social media or electronics. Bullying, there's a very long definition for bullying here and found on page 32, but in essence, being nice to others, being caring, being kind is the expectation here. We are not going to tolerate any sort of bullying, any sort of making people feel small or scared or hurt or harmed. Unacceptable and will not be tolerated. So just be kind, be positive, be empathetic, and we will all be good here. Search policy, just a reminder that we do have the right to search students if we have any reasonable suspicion that they may have something that they should not have. This will most often come about if you leave the building when you're not supposed to, if you come back late from somewhere, if you are in a place of the building where you're not supposed to be, or if you have any sort of reasonable suspicion that you might have something, you will be subject to search. If you refuse to consent, and a key thing to remember here is if you refuse to consent to a search, you will be assumed as guilty. So just be mindful of what you bring into school, what you carry with you, and then being mindful of where you're supposed to be on campus at all times. Unexcused absences, tardies, no credits, no changes here, but good reminders that the expectation, of course, is that you are in class on time every single day. We will be issuing lunch detentions for students with tardy issues. We will be issuing lunch detentions if you are in the hallway when you don't have a pass or you're not supposed to be in the hallway. And another reminder that if you miss 7 or more days with unexcused absences, you will lose credit for that course, and that may be absences and or a combination of tardies. Remember, 3 tardies equal an absence. A loss of credit will result in a no credit, and then we will have to meet in the office to determine what we do next. So be on time every day, won't be an issue. We are going to be monitoring attendance very closely this year, both truancy and tardies. Many of you have seen the new lunchroom. It is amazing. We're, of course, still working through the change as we learn through some new habits, but please be very gentle and respectful of the new areas and new property. A couple reminders that you probably have already noticed already. Lunch is to be eaten in the lunchroom only. We are not going to be allowing lunch in Flag Hall, Flex Hall, the deck, etc. If the lunchroom is bigger, should be plenty of space for everyone. We're still working out the kinks, as I mentioned, but we're going to be remaining in the lunchroom only. No going past those double doors on either side. If you, for whatever reason, choose not to eat lunch, you do not want to eat lunch, and you do not want to be in the lunchroom, you may choose to be in the media center quietly during that time. Lunch attention still runs. It's in the dance studio, which is in F101. You will get assigned this for relatively the first offenses, things of tardies, that sort of things, low-level behaviors. Lunch attention is the primary first consequence. Students who arrive at lunch attention late it will no longer count, and you have to serve that plus another day. So if you do get assigned a lunch attention for tardies or being in the hallway, serve it when you are issued it. Otherwise, it will accumulate. So ask any of the behavior team or administration if you have any questions with that. Dropping or adding a course. Many of you have done this now or know how the system works. But remember that we will not change the schedule once the school year has started. You must meet one of these 4 exceptions to change a course, if you want to change a course. Those are if credit has been already earned back during summer school, if you do not have the prerequisite for a course, if it's an inappropriate academic level, or if an error was made by our staff during the scheduling process. Those are the only 4 exceptions for changing courses throughout the school year. If you do meet one of these exceptions, you must meet with your guidance counselor, and it must be done by the 2nd day of the trimester, and the dates are listed here below. And I will send this presentation out to students and to families at the end of this week. So if you do any dropping of courses after 2 days, you will receive an F on your transcript. And any student wishing to take an online class outside of the BPS system must be registered in that class before the beginning of the trimester. So as of the playing of this video, those are no longer options for this trimester. But any questions around this, please ask your counselor. Flex spaces, we worked on them last year, continuing to improve them this year. Please respect these spaces. They are an academic learning area. There's our 5 expectations here. Make sure you sign in. And make sure that you follow directions of the adults in those spaces as well. And just by and large, remembering that these areas are privileges, and if you do not use them as they are intended in a respectful manner, you will lose the privilege of working out there. Hybrid and online courses, you may leave the building if you are scheduled for an online or hybrid course, but you must first complete a form that is found in the attendance office. If you leave, keep a couple key things. If you leave and return to school early, you'll be held in the front entrance. If you leave and return late, you may be subject to discipline, including searches. Students staying behind to work will be staying in the cafeteria, and just make sure you signed in and working in the appropriate location. Testing center, not much change. It has moved though to C9, which is across from Mr. Levinsky's room. Make sure you set an appointment with your teacher and make sure you keep that appointment. Any tests not completed within 2 weeks will be returned to the teacher. Leaving school early, just a reminder to be called out by a parent or guardian. Make sure you sign out with both the nurse if it's an illness and with the attendance office so that no truancies or tardies or absences get marked to your record. So make sure you sign out properly. Behavior violations, again, I'm not going to go through all of these, but there is a couple pages in our student handbook here with a rubric of how we make decisions around misbehaviors. Of course, the expectation is that you don't do any of these things, but if you happen to find yourself in one of those situations, those are how we kind of guide our decision making, although everything is situation and student dependent, but that's how we guide our decision making found in the handbook. Jefferson after hours, remember it's in gold flex space until, went too fast, until 3:30 Monday through Thursday, working with a teacher or tutor sometimes. Great place to get your homework done before you leave for the day. And then again, after school procedures, we started this last year, went pretty well. School ends at 2:37, 2:14 on block days. The building's open for about an hour, but at 3:30 we shut everything down, and any students still in the building must wait by the front entrance in front of the ropes. Fridays is the exception. We close on at 2:50, so please plan accordingly. Of course, if you're supervised by an adult, you are okay. And by and large, we're going to have a great year. I trust and have faith in all of you, but just make sure you remember to keep a positive outlook, leave a positive legacy, look out for those younger students. Have a great year. I'm really excited for you. Rock on, Jaguars.